He's helped transform public education both here in Ontario and in Tony Blair's United Kingdom. And yet, he flunked a couple of university entrance exams and had to go to summer school. Even after that, he was a pretty mediocre student who often cut classes. Just goes to show that a slow start didn't prevent him from eventually chasing his dream of a life in education. And with that, we welcome Michael Fullan, just ahead of his 78th birthday, to look back at his life, which he chronicles in Surreal Change, the real life of transforming public education. Happy birthday, Michael Fullan.
Thank you very much.
If I could do this a little bit in advance.
Yep.
I want to start because it is so ironic that you, who've spent your whole life in education, were such a mediocre student back in the day. Do you know why you were?
I think for two reasons. One, I was distracted by hockey and everything else that goes with that. So their hours were taken up by going and playing early in the morning, playing all around, all over the place. So,
and you were a good player.
Yeah, I was a good player. I had our family was hockey family, so that was a big distraction. And then I wasn't really focusing on education. There was nothing that drew me in, but there was a lot that drew me away.
You eventually did get your degree, and in 1965 you got hired by the brand new OISE, the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education. What was OISE created to do?
Well, Premier Davis created OISE as a
He wasn't premier yet.
No, he wasn't.
He was education minister at the time.
It was created as a institution. It didn't have a lot of specific definition. It was supposed to be a big feature. In those days, there was resources. Education was just starting. It was a big emphasis on, we're going to create the future. We're going to have a big research institution. So there's a lot of fanfare, broad mandate, but not much definition.
How revolutionary was all of that 50 years ago?
It was, I would say, it was revolutionary, certainly in its own right, but it didn't have a definition, so it was amorphous. And I think it created itself as it went, and then it got into various trouble with the University of Toronto on a number of issues because of the agreement of affiliation. OISE did not have degree granting powers, so they had to affiliate with the University of Toronto. That affiliation was renewed every 5 years. It seemed like it had gone forever, but it didn't, and that's how we started.
Now, a couple of decades after joining OISE, you became Dean of the Faculty of Education at the University of Toronto. Right. And one of the things I found really interesting in the book was that you learned a bunch of lessons on how to treat people from that perch. So I want to go through some of them with you here. Treat people with dignity. Now, that seems pretty bloody obvious. Why isn't there more of that out there?
I think people, leaders, especially if they're not, even if they're used to it, they tend to go with their own agenda. They're not sensitive to other people where they are. And it was somewhat of a unique situation because the Faculty of Education at the University of Toronto was neglected terribly by the university itself. It grew large. It was a cash cow. There are 130 professors, and they let it deteriorate, basically, all those years until close to 1988. And by that time, there were 82 professors or so. I was the first new person of any kind to be hired in 14 years. So when I got hired and came in with my mandate for change, I faced these 82 professors. Almost all of them had been there 20 years.
And hostile to you.
Hostile, because I represented change. Some of them knew change had happened. So it was a start that, for me, I was a rookie, a leader. I'd been not in charge of anything so fully. So I had my agenda. The provost, the president, who was Rob Pritchard, wanted me to do things. And so I started into it. And I found out that not only was I dismissing the background and the context of some of the people, but some of those people were great teachers. They just had been kind of left there to wither on the vine. And I really learned the hard way, but I recovered in time.
One of the things that you did is you want to involve people in the shaping of a new direction of an organization while being firm that a new direction must happen.
Yeah.
Now, when you tried that, how much pushback did you get?
I didn't get a lot of pushback because I had negotiated the opportunity to replace any of the professors that were leaving. So the time I came with the early retirement policy and so forth, a number of people on the faculty of the 82 said, it's time for me to go. I'm going to retire early, age 58, 62, whatever. So in my first 12 months, 22 professors resigned, left. And I didn't take it personally. They just was their time to go on. So that meant it wasn't the leaving that was the significant thing in some ways. It was my ability to hire a whole new number of people that we did for 4 or 5 years. So one of the reasons that we were able to make the change so quickly is that the new people came in. They were younger, usually younger, recent doctorate students, and they were also more applied oriented, working in schools. They also were mentored by some of the senior professors who were really good teachers. So some of the really best leaders were the ones that were there, and they flourished in the new way because now it was about time we had something to live for.
Well, let's talk about the bad apples a little more, because
Yeah.
you said also one of the lessons that you learned at this time was not to pigeonhole people.
Yeah.
They may be difficult because of the circumstances they're in, rather than because they're difficult people. Is that
Yeah.
really true?
I think it's true for most people. I would say even today we deal a lot with resistance to change in quotation marks. And what happens in those cases is that sometimes people are against something because they feel threatened, because it's unknown what's going to happen to them. So they come out as their worst. And if you misinterpret that, if you really make a mistake. And we find if you change the circumstances so that's more fulfilling, then people actually change. I would say most people change. There are a few people that will never change. But when I think of one of the key lessons I learned, I call it impressive empathy. We all know what empathy is. Impressive empathy is when you have empathy to someone who's in your way. That's why it's impressive. And if you can understand where they're coming from and have them make a connection to what's important to them, it's amazing what the turnaround can be. And then they become leaders among their peers, others who might have been resistance. So I learned a lot about positive resistance and how to overcome it.
Let's continue the story about OISE here, because 30 years after its creation, Mike Harris became the Premier of Ontario, 1995. And you tell us in the book that he wanted to make a point about reining in spending, and that one of the things he wanted to do was shut down OISE in its 30th year. John Snoblin was the Minister of Education at the time, and you had a conversation with him about that. How did that go?
Well, actually, the conversation was through Charles Pascal, who was the Deputy Minister at the time. So we didn't know what was going on in the minds of Mike Harris about OISE, but we were negotiating a new agreement with the University of Toronto and OISE at the time, and it became really difficult. We finally came to an agreement. There's a big complex story about that, but as we came to agreement, we thought things were settled. Charles told me afterwards, this is in the book in retrospect, that John Snoblin, who was his boss as minister, said they want me to close down OISE because we're saving. It's a symbol of saving big money. And so Charles, he asked Charles what was good about OISE, and I had already been appointed by the search committee, but it wasn't announced. So there was a touchy time there that John Snoblin actually, in an ironic way, helped save OISE. Not OISE, but the OISE-UT combination.
See, now that's what I found interesting about the story, because Snoblin is famously a high school graduate who had no post-secondary, self-made man, and sort of made headlines at the time for saying, let's create a crisis, because when you have a crisis, you can get stuff done. And he's the one who said, tell me some good stuff about OISE so I can go save it. Did that surprise you?
I think maybe Charles had some additional agenda discussion about wanting the new institution to develop. It did surprise me because in another case, at the time we were working with school districts, and one of the school districts, Durham, had won a big international prize from the Bertelsmann Foundation in Germany. The prize was as an innovative school system to be celebrated, and it was among the best in the world, according to the Bertelsmann assessors. So that was announced, and we found that Snoblin and others, they didn't want to advertise that because they wanted to claim the system was broken in many ways, and they didn't want any good news stories. So they suppressed the publication of what should have been a great story for everybody. So I am surprised that John Snoblin was part of saving the new OISE-UT.
In 2003, Dalton McGuinty and the Liberals win an election here in the province. They become the new government of Ontario, and they asked one of Tony Blair's advisors who they should get to advise them on education in Ontario.
Right.
And what did they say?
Well, we actually got our advice from Michael Fullan, who's probably his office is a few blocks from you. You should, but they told them, and then they came back and they sought me out, and I met with the Premier-to-be, as it turned out, and we talked. They said, we want this agenda. And I gave them a copy. I have a basic textbook called The Meaning of Educational Change. And I gave them a copy that just came out. 7 days later, they called and said, this is our agenda. You can work with us in any possible way. They weren't yet elected, but they were then October 2003, they got elected.
Besides improving literacy and numeracy skills, one of your jobs, according to them, was to make peace with the teacher unions. And here's the quote from your book. In the 4 years prior to 2003, the Liberals took over that year, there were hundreds of teacher days lost to strikes. In the 4 years after 2003, the number was 0. Why do you think?
Well, in the period, and I was doing the research prior to when Mike Harris was premier, and it got worse and worse in terms of the deterioration of the relationship with teachers. Teachers were taken to the streets. There was, we know that the results were flatline, literacy 5 years in a row, high school graduation stuck at 68%. So it was a very dull place to do that. And I think that, I think then the question was, what should we do? We had the focus on literacy. We had the focus on high school graduation. And we said that we'll actually use this phrase, we have to pay attention to a peace and stability framework with the teachers. So what happened, and I must say it surprised me because we had such a strong record politically as well as educationally. And when there was the second election, there was 8 years, golden years I'm going to call them. When it came to the third election, the Liberals were 1 seat short of a majority.
In 2011, yeah.
2011. And Premier McGuinty became different. He became obsessed with getting that additional seat. His political advisors, I was an education advisor, not a political advisor, his political advisors were telling him, you have to get tough on teachers. And we knew it would backfire, and it did backfire. And somehow his moral compass, where he was so solid for 8 years, went out the window when politics took over. And it was really a bad time. It deteriorated badly.
Having said that, it does seem that no premier is able to have constructive relationships with teacher unions for very long. None of them
Right.
seem to have it. Is it truly impossible, just by nature of the system, for the premier and the teacher unions to have a constructive relationship?
Well, I think you can be variations of worse. Let's put it that way. And he wasn't until the very end. For some reason, he turned. But those 8 years, that's a long time. And I think also that it is a fact. We know the research across the OECD countries that countries that have strong teacher unions have better performance. The research is pretty clear. But somehow the mutual conflict between teachers and governments, when the political part takes over the governance part, it just starts to go off the rails. And I think also I'd make a distinction between relationship with the teacher unions, where there's a lot of stances being taken on both sides politically, and the rank and file teachers, where that's where the success happens. And when the relationship with the union get really bad, then the everyday teachers are suffering. And then the education goes down. So that's what happened after the second term.
I'm going to bring back another name, Charles Pascal, who was Deputy Minister of Education once upon a time. Dalton McGuinty brought him back in to be the early childhood education czar. They set up a full-day kindergarten system. Critics at the time said you were bringing in a Cadillac system when we really only could afford a Chevy.
Yeah.
Okay, we're down the road now several years. What's the verdict so far?
The verdict is great. Hardly any politician had taken the initiative because it's paying off 7 years later. Politicians want to know what's paying off next year, not 7 years. Yeah. So, but we had the decision was made and eventually in just such a short order. I went over, had a meeting, and we said, let's do it. And even though it was cutting into the deficit, it's been a big success. It's been evaluated by a group in Kingston at Queen's, evaluated by the Institute of Child Studies in Ontario and OISE. So the results are in, and students who went through this are coming to kindergarten, grade 1, better prepared socially and academically. So it's a big success. The bigger picture of evaluation of early learning all across the world is showing the same results. If you pay attention to the age 0 to 5 with good support and development, you get better results all the way, starting in grade 1.
Let me get your take on Kathleen Wynne's time as Premier. She was, of course, a former education minister as well. She wanted not only literacy and numeracy to be priorities, but she wanted equity to be a top priority as well. What was your view on that?
Equity, or lack of equity, is becoming a growing problem all over the world. That the gap between the high and low performance, or in economic terms, just is widening and is reaching a crisis now. So I think at the earlier time, she was perhaps ahead of her time. When it came to then introducing equity more forcefully, my advice was make sure it's close to educational success, not just as a policy of equity, but as a policy of learning. And so that's what we've tried to do. I think Premier Wynne was distracted because the first 3 years she was patching up relationships with the unions that had been alienated right around the election. So she wasted, my viewpoint, necessarily wasted a lot of time to get started. And by the time she got going, 3 or 4 years later, it was too late for her politically.
New government in place now?
Yeah.
You spoken to anybody in this government?
No, I haven't, and nor have they come calling.
Would you want to?
I wouldn't mind, actually, because I think whether we now see the full force of what I called the politics versus the governance, because it's still the first few months. And I think you just see these ad hoc decisions that are, they're not the combination of factors you need to look at. There's a kind of a bumper sticker mentality to what should be next, we should act on this. So there's a little bit of a piecemealness. I understand that as the first few months. I hope they will come calling, because I think at the end of the day, what this government should want, what Premier Ford should want, is a high-quality public education system. And we are recognized already as one of the best in the world by OECD as high performance and high equity. We have to really pay attention to that, or otherwise, it's not only a matter of reputation, it's a matter of society deteriorating. The greater the gap, the more we know the future has. Jobs the job market is hard to define, climate change, the whole question of social cohesion. Almost every country is suffering a greater lack of trust between the institutions and the people. All of this is bad news. If an education is the thing that can do something about that, if you focus on it.
I'm going to ask you a very odd last question. Here we go. You had in your grade 10 class Frank Mahovlich and Jerry Cheevers, who were two pretty darn good hockey players in the National Hockey League. Your brother played in the NHL. If you had your choice to do it all over again, would you choose to transform education, or would you choose to have had a career in the NHL?
Well, without doubt, transform education. I wasn't quite good enough to have a career in the NHL, even in those days when there were fewer players available. So from now, I mean, this is my niche. I didn't plan for it, you know, from the book on Surreal. It sucked me in, and the more I got in, the more I wanted to do. So I'm in the right place. I have been for the last 30 years.
Good for you. And happy 78th birthday on November 1st.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be with you.
Surreal Change, the real life of transforming public education. That is the latest from Michael Fullan. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Steve.
The Agenda with Steve Bacon is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.